what is steampunk exactly? For those that may confuse it with cyberpunk or other genres like that?
Well, the main distance between steampunk and cyberpunk, steampunk actually sprang from cyberpunk. There was William Gibson and
Bruce Sterling wrote the first, definitive steampunk novel called The Difference Engine. But the term steampunk actually came from another 1980s incident where the sci-fi writer K.W. Jeter was trying to describe his Victorian sci-fi fantasies, and he wrote, jokingly, well, let's just call it steampunk as a play off cyberpunk. And so that term has been floating around for about 20 years or so, but only in the last 10 years or so has it actually gained traction as, and not only as an aesthetic, as a subgenre, but also as a subcultural movement.
Why has it in the last 20 years that steampunk seems to be more of a popular thing at conventions or with sci-fi fans?
Well, I know particularly at anime conventions, a lot of people tend to cling to it because a lot of animes have various elements of steampunk, specifically because of a lot of robot arms, a lot of automatons, but also a lot of why at other conventions it seems to be getting popular is because you don't need to have an original character that you're basing things off of. You can create your own character. You can create your own weapons, and people will just recognize you as, you're steampunk. That's awesome.
I think also steampunk has to do with just the general, in geekdom and in mainstream culture, fascination with the Victorian era. Especially now when people see a lot of parallels, Victorian era is known as a time of dramatic change, a time of great discovery and invention, the Industrial Revolution, and all sorts of crazy things going on, both socially and politically. Whether it's the woman question, whether it's the question about slavery, whether it's the question about class differences. And people really see a lot of parallels in today's world with the economy, being terrible, with people wondering what their future is, with the onslaught of war and the development technology. People still have those same questions today as they had 150 years ago. But oddly enough, people feel nostalgic when looking at these parallels. Like, they want to go back to a time where technology is still something the average person can understand with a high school education, that has something to do with building something for hands and understanding how it works, as opposed to all of this digital technology, all this advanced, you can't see it, but it somehow works, sort of technology that is today.
And particularly, just talking about the nostalgia aspect, a lot of people tend to like steampunk because a lot of the other movements that have come out over the past 30 years, like say the goth movement or the cyberpunk movement, have been a little sad, a little depressing, and because of that, a lot of people outside of the movement stay away from them. They think that they're scary, they think that they're vampires. With us in particular, we've had instances where people off the street would come up to us and just be like, oh my gosh, I love that necklace, my grandmother had one of those. And it really breeds in this society a very openness, something that is lacking in a lot of other
sort of subcultures.
What makes steampunk fashion different from other forms of fashion?
Well, steampunk fashion, particularly right now, is still kind of getting its legs. It's starting to develop into something very specific, but a lot of what people tend to wear are browns or sepia tones, a lot of exposed work. I think that's probably my favorite thing about steampunk fashion in and of itself. It's not about covering up the details, like you can have an iPod and it's very shiny, ooh, that's great, but I have no idea what it does. You're actually looking at the hoop skirt, or you're actually looking at the innards of the outfit itself. And that's what I find really interesting about steampunk fashion as it is right now.
And also steampunk fashion is very interesting because, it had its roots in Victorian fashion, and Victorian fashion itself was very intricate, it was very elaborate. People today would probably look at something Victorian and be like, oh, that's extremely gaudy, because it's all full of gold frangé and excessive amounts of detail. But that is what they really found fascinating back then, because Industrial Revolution, they had all these capabilities to create clothing and fashion that was exceedingly elaborate, full of intricate embroidery and designs they hadn't been able to do before. And I think what also makes steampunk fashion today so great and so interesting is that it's very individual. It's very against the mass consumerism, factory-esque clothing that has been coming out, since forever, basically. But with steampunk, you can take a piece of clothing and customize it so it's uniquely your own, that no one else would ever have, and people really admire that fact.
Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about steampunk aesthetic in the fashion sense. What we've got right here are very much aeronautical sense. You can tell that they're either airship pirates, or there are a number of things that you can get just by the looks. Particularly, you can see by the bomber goggles that the gentleman here has on. Sir, what is your name?
Mike. Mike?
Yes. Yes, into the mic. You can see by the goggles right up here. You can see by the communication piece, probably dating a little bit more towards the 20s, maybe? Which is fine, which is a little bit out of the Victorian era, but nonetheless, it doesn't have to stick to Victorian. It just has to be anachronistic. What I find really interesting about Mike, particularly in a steampunk setting, is he's got little bits of pieces that are very clearly steampunk, like a gear on his zipper, little medallions up here, pardon me, little gear thing right here on his belt. But the biggest thing that says to me steampunk about Mike is, show him the wings. That's fine, but if you look at the detail on the back, there's a lot of chrome, there's a lot of brass, there's a lot of... The big thing about steampunk is the metals. So we're going to go over to... Thank you very much, Mike. We're going to go over to Mike's cohort, Deborah. Devora. I'm sorry, it's pronounced Deborah where I'm from.
It is.
What we have, very interestingly, with Deborah is we have a lot of color. A lot of times you don't see this in steampunk because people feel that they have to stick to the browns, to the sepia tones, to the khakis. We've got purple hair, and we've got a nice purple froofy skirt.
And color.
Nope.
Well, there's color there, that's the point.
There you go.
There we go. Now, Devora, tell us a little bit why you constructed the piece on your back.
I'm a balloon twister in my real life, and I was very inspired actually by a panel that you guys were running. Your character does the whole kitchen thing with the cooking, and her character, she took things that are very everyday kind of real life things and brought them into character and made it relative. So I wanted to take something not from necessarily just my character, but my actual real life, because my balloon twisting is a really big thing that I do, and I wanted to put it into something steampunk so that I could, connect my reality with my fun. And it's functional. It blows up balloons. It's not just a jetpack. It also triples in size.
Baron Von Leahy over here.
It's about time. I was getting bored. Notice me! Hello, I'm the Baron.
Oh, there we go.
Baron is wearing a very nice suit.
I am.
Don't feed his ego. It's an okay suit.
Tell us a little about your suit, Baron.
Well, it's yellow. And, well, it's nice because it sort of fits the steam... I'm going to just take this from you. Thanks. Hi. It sort of fits the steampunk aesthetic because it does play off of the Victorian style with the three-piece suit. But I added little knickknacks to it to make it more steampunk. The cane, very steampunk, made out of some hand... this was actually... fire pokers, here, hold that for a second. Fire pokers with pieces of railing and then a brass riveted top hat on top with little odd assortments. This is a clip clock instead of a pocket watch and some little bling, and I have a key in my hat. So just little bling, I guess, add to the steampunk aesthetic.
You're so impressed with your suit.
I am so impressed with myself. Well, what are you?
Did you pick it out yourself this morning, or did you have someone else do it for you?
Someone else do it for me.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
You're the worst.
I'm the best.
Ah, you're not.
You're a drunken bastard.
I'm not even a little bit drunk. Okay, I'm a little bit drunk, but still. Hello, I'm the professor, and Professor Ulysses Marvel. And mostly, we were doing informational panels today, so I thought I'd dress a little bit nicer than my usual fare, a bit more learned. But yeah, so we've got just nice button up and arm garners. Keeps the shirt where it's supposed to be. I do like to have a fair amount of things on hand. I don't like to be without certain tools of the trade. So I have my my belt. I don't like to usually part with that. And my map case. I'm the navigator, so I like to always have my books and my maps fairly close by. And my hat, fairly nice. And my glasses. They're rose tinted. so I can, you know, actually stand being with you people. Once I take them off, no, they gotta stay on.
Lucretia and I do a different variety of steampunk. We don't do Anglo-centric steam, but we do more Eastern, Asian-influenced steampunk. I call it bamboo punk. Other people I've heard call it rice punk, but I think bamboo is more awesome than rice, so that's how I do that. And basically, this outfit here is, well, partly an assassin's uniform that I go about in when I stalk my targets. And as you can see, it's a mix of Eastern Western blend with like the leggings and the boot covers for a more Western sense, as opposed to like loose pants, which is more typical of Eastern wear. Same thing with the vest and the corset, but the whole look in general does have Eastern accents. The corset is embroidered with dragons. There's a lot of like the gold stylings on this jacket is for Eastern and Western inspired. Even my pocket watch, I have to say, has a little dragon on it, as opposed to other European pocket watches. So, and the Eastern influence is also an evidence of my signature weapon, which is called the Peacemaker. And I'll just bring that out here. Amazingly, I'll be able to bring it one-handed if I'm clever enough. I guess I am. And as you can see here, the style of the gun is actually Chinese-inspired. This is my take on a Chinese steam-powered hand cannon. As you can see, there are characters on it. The top says peace, the lower one means death. Thus, this is the Peacemaker. The dragon motif is carried throughout, and along the muzzle of the gun are actually Dharma wheels. Because my steampunk persona and myself actually are Buddhist, so I like to carry that motif as kind of like an ironic twist to who I am.
Now, with my look, I try very hard because, especially being, for lack of a better term, being a white person and using a lot of Asian Eastern styles of clothing, to some people it can be taken very offensively. So when I look at something that's very specifically Eastern or Eastern inspired, I try very hard to understand a lot about the clothing. This particular top I did modify because it's more of a shirt that was kind of mass marketed. It's nice, but it's more of a robe. So I got rid of the sleeves. The kimono that I wear, because I do wear a kimono, I try very hard not to touch that. I try very hard to treat that with respect because the kimono has a lot of significance to us, to the Japanese culture. With the kimono, though, I don't wear an obi. I wear this leather corset. It's a motorcycle belt. And because of that, it still creates the same aesthetic, but it creates a different take on the aesthetic. Now, my weapons. I work predominantly with food. I'm a chef. I'm not a cook. So these guys right here, actually salad tossers. So I'll kill you, and I'll toss your salad. Wait. I'll kill you with salad tossers. You can visit the Wandering Legion of the Thomas II at www.thewanderinglegion.com, as well as checking out Ay-leen's blog,
Beyond Victoriana, a multicultural perspective on steampunk, and you can visit that at beyondvictoriana.com.
I'll kill you, I'll kill you!
Hey! I told you, no fighting unless I'm involved. Ay-leen, take my mic.
Okay, go ahead.
Go!